So what are we talking about today, Frank?
Yeah, today we're reflecting on the explosion that happened on Twitter 2 months after the fact.
Did we start that explosion? I guess we'll find out.
We didn't start the fire.
We're going to demonetize because you just did that.
Talking nerdy. We're just talking nerdy. With all this talking nerdy. Oh, come on, you wanna talk nerdy. Talking nerdy.
Back in March of 2024, a little over 1 year ago, 100,000 people tuned in to watch us get pummeled by nearly 200 haters on Twitter, all because of a guest we interviewed, Satine Phoenix. Our ratings went from 5 stars to 1.8, and the toll on our mental health made it difficult to sleep, focus, and even be out in public. This episode includes parts from 2 of our conversations about that Twitter storm. One was 3 days after, and the other was over a month later. We've also added in clips from our interview with Satine. If you don't know who Satine Phoenix is, or the events surrounding her getting canceled by the Dungeons & Dragons community, links to our 2-part interview with her can be found in the show notes of this episode. But if you simply want the Spark Notes version of what happened, here it is. Satine was a celebrity in the D&D world.
I'm Satine Phoenix, co-creator of Maze Arcana and Dungeon Master of Fury's Reach. Today, we're going to talk about villain design.
She'd built a brand by combining a nerdy passion, good timing, and her tenacious drive. With the launch of D&D 5th edition in 2014 and the move to online actual plays like Critical Role shortly after, she and her friends started streaming their games and networking with the best players and game masters, such as Brennan Lee Mulligan and the team at Dimension 20.
Hello and welcome back to Adventuring Academy. I'm your host, Brennan Lee Mulligan. With me today, we are so excited to have Satine Phoenix! Satine is the community manager for Wizards of the Coast. She is the DM of Sirens, and she also is the founder of Gilding Light.
Years later, she married Jameson Stone, who turned out to be problematic, and that's putting it lightly. They combined their brands and started working as a package deal. Along the way, there were people they did business with that felt mistreated by them.
Chad Rowe, one of Post Malone's tattoo artists of all people, posted a very lengthy thread on Twitter, the platform currently known as Twitter, and he exposed Satine and her partner, former partner, Jameson Stone, for some real toxic behavior. To boil down a long thread, very short.
In the summer of 2022, a few people came forward with screenshots of private messages that showed Jameson as a self-centered, inconsiderate, and verbally abusive person. Jameson was roasted alive and promptly canceled. Even though the evidence against Satine was minimal in comparison, she was dragged in, and before you could roll a D20, all her business contracts and upcoming partnerships were canceled. Satine was a celebrity, with a vast network and widespread recognition in the Dungeons & Dragons world. But in 24 to 48 hours, it was over. We reached out for an interview a year after these events, not to talk about the reasons and validity for being canceled. Instead, we wanted to hear about her journey, the business lessons she'd learned from being canceled, and what was next for her as a nerdpreneur.
Nerds deserve to put their passion first, so let them rap a verse so they can all be heard.
Welcome to Nerdpreneur, where we have fun conversations with people making money with their nerdy passion. And today we have a very special guest, Satine Phoenix. Welcome to Nerdpreneur.
What a wonderful welcome. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We're very excited to have you on, and thanks for coming on our podcast.
Our discussion with her was delightful, and all 3 of us had a fun time.
Some people don't even believe you can make money doing this nerdy stuff, all right? Like that's what we're trying to show people is it's possible to be a successful and thriving and abundant nerd in your space and be able to do that. So could you speak a little bit about what are some of those things that turned into businesses?
Yeah. So if you can imagine, my gaming career was about 13 years old. I didn't get paid for 6 years. I'm literally bleeding money. I don't even know. I was just obsessed with game nights and game afternoons at Meltdown Comics. I'm like running events. So in 2010, so I started those things like 2009, 2010. In 2010, I invented live stream Dungeons and Dragons over at Meltdown. That was where Nerdist started. Nerdist was a podcast.
Yeah, Nerdist. Chris Hardwick.
Dan Harmon was in the back doing comedy, and he would do his shows there. And then I had a bunch of friends come, and we were like, okay, how do we raise money for charity? Oh, well,
However, 2 weeks after we released the interview, a few of her haters found it.
Of all the people in the industry you could give a platform to, why choose someone with a known past of abusing and using people?
I don't give a damn what she has to say. Maybe when she starts making amends for her misdeeds. Until then, she can fuck all the way off.
How disgusting. How dare you give a platform to an abuser?
It's like Joe Rogan having Trump on to hear his side of things.
Who the fuck are you, dumbasses?
You guys, as many will say, fucked up.
Way to make sure I never listen to you guys.
Cringe choice. Blocked.
You two are godless couch fucks.
This post is so toxic, even porn bots don't want to be associated with it.
Instant block. Go directly to hell.
You just instantly nuked your podcast.
You know it's guys like y'all who touch hot plates at restaurants.
What a mess.
The post we put out on Twitter announcing this interview was like all our other episode drops. Simple, enthusiastic, and hopeful that others would tune into our nerdy business podcast that we were so excited to share. It read, "Hey, hashtag D&D, we just interviewed Satine Phoenix. Part 1 of this 2-part episode dropped on all podcast apps." We had our usual announcement style image with our faces beside Satine's and the title of the episode. Knowing what we know now, you could say we were poking the bear, but this was our standard format for announcing an episode release. We posted this on March 13th, 2024, and it lived in obscurity like many posts of a growing podcast until 2 weeks later on March 28th, when the impressions skyrocketed. The post received 97 comments, 30 reshares, 87,000 impressions, and 5 likes, 2 of which were us. This one Twitter post suddenly became our biggest and most hated piece of content ever, and we weren't ready for it.
Yeah, I'm okay for the most part, really. I mean, I've noticed a few things. I'm like definitely triggered from all of this the last 48 hours. I'm definitely like when I go into public, I'm regularly worried that some random person is going to yell at me, like just like in like all the comments we've been getting, and it's so irrational. It's not. I never used to think that.
Were you yelled at as a kid?
I was yelled. I mean, yeah, I've been yelled at. I mean, I was an actor. I got yelled at.
Well, I don't know. Well, sorry, that's a crazy statement. What are you talking about?
Some acting coaches are really hostile. I got yelled at by teachers. I got yelled at as a kid. Yeah.
I've felt that, I've always felt like I've had a lot of mental toughness, being a salesperson and, going into difficult environments and, running, I can run long distances and lift lots of weight and all those things that they tell you. Right. And so, but I also know this about myself. I have a very high tolerance for abuse, in general, as I grew up, in a household with a lot of emotional abuse so I just kind of got used to it. And I also myself experienced quite a bit of it.
Sorry, when you say with, you mean from
no,
or that
no,
you too?
Was the subject of emotional abuse.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. For like my entire childhood, all the way through till I left the house at 17, as soon as I could. Now, the thing is that my tolerance for the ability to kind of take things, for a large part of my life was just like very high. And, that showed up in multiple relationships I had too. My partners that I would take, my partners, I've had multiple female partners that were in all objective nature, extremely emotionally abusive to me. Like, everybody around me saw the problems. Everyone around me alienated my relationship because of that toxicity. And I had been left to my own devices and on my own. So getting into something like this, I didn't expect to have much of a repercussion. And what I'm shocked about is that my mind seems taken up with it. Like, I can do the work and sort of manually make myself not focus on it, if you know what I mean, and think about things differently and realize, like, okay, well, let's get some perspective here. 82,000 people who I don't know might have seen a post where about 150 people shit on us, like basically said mean things. And so I have to work to make myself do that, which is a step above being normal, And I'm not a victim. That's kind of the central thing about this, is as much as I'm saying this stuff about abuse or whatever, like, I'm not a victim, and I've never been a victim, except once I passed 17. Like, it's really important to understand that if you're stuck in something, it's because you are continuing to identify yourself as a victim and not taking on the responsibility for what occurred, right? And so there's real power in actually doing that. But what I'll say is that I'm shocked that this has had some form of emotional effect on me. And it's been hard to sleep. It's been hard to turn my brain off. It's been hard to actually get myself to sit down and focus on things. And I guess part of it is there's no outlet for me to be able to channel this energy. You're literally the only person I think I can talk to about it right now. And the only thing I can say is that, if I talk to my girlfriend about it, she's just like, well, don't spend so much time on Twitter. Like, that's kind of the reaction to it, because they don't, like, it's not their thing. And that's fine. And it's probably good advice. I wasn't on Twitter before this at all. Two, I can't, if I talk to, parents or people like that, they just don't really understand it. Like, they don't get it. If I talk to other nerds, or we talk to people out there, I can't go and talk to the people who are doing it, because it just feels like they're completely irrational, right? Like, it just has no conversation that is to be had. And that's the nature of Twitter, I think. And also what I think might lead me to think that some of these people are a little broken, but I'm going to go into that more. But the inability to clap back, or in some way, like, defend myself, stand strong, and actually fight this in some way, or the process of doing it feels like it only can make things worse, is what is frustrating for me.
Frank and I really didn't know what to do with what was happening. But we knew we had to do something. So we decided to draft a letter and send it out to the Twitter storm the next day. I'll read that letter for you now. To our listeners, fans, and critics. We've heard from some of the D&D community and their passion regarding events around Jameson Stone and Satine Phoenix. We were aware of the allegations, most of which single out Jameson, who we did not invite on the podcast. We wanted to talk to Satine because it was a unique story of success and epic failure in a nerd business. It's these kinds of rare stories that have lessons for our entrepreneurial audience. We do not apologize for or defend Satine. Nerdpreneur has interviewed entrepreneurs in dozens of different niches and markets. Satine was no different. Her story just happened to be a controversial one in the D&D Twitter community. It's not the only story we've told from the D&D community, and it won't be the last. But business is messy. People are messy. Things don't always work out the way they're supposed to. And we decided to have a conversation with someone who's been through that. We did not expect the scale of attention this episode announcement would garner. It feels to us like a lot of the animosity towards this episode was because we had a polite conversation with her and we weren't the vindictive gotcha journalists you were hoping for. We intentionally treat every guest with kindness and respect. We aren't gotcha journalists or attention seekers. We are two nerds who love business. Do listen to us or don't. Most of you didn't listen when we interviewed people you know and love, but the listeners we do have are here because they find value in conversations with real entrepreneurs dealing with real shit. Business is vulnerable. It's for the bold, not the fearful. Entrepreneurs enter the arena knowing there will be adversity. Sometimes entrepreneurs learn things the hard way. We think we highlight that in both our episodes with Satine. After yesterday's Twitter storm, we've heard there are still individuals who have not been paid for work contractually provided to Satine. If you are one of those people and you want to talk about your experience with Satine, we are happy to have you on. You can reach out to us at nerds@nerdpreneurpodcast.com when you're ready. We share this vulnerably and truthfully with you. Some of you won't care, but hopefully most of you will hear us and understand our purpose and passion. And for those of you enraged that we would even have a conversation with her, we will miss you. As always, keep it nerdy.
It's fascinating to see the people the next day. So, things blew up on Thursday. Then Friday morning, I was like, I wonder if people are still like talking about this. And my news feed was actually showing me like, yeah, okay, people are independently posting about this, not commenting on us, or independently posting with screenshots of what we have shared over the years to pick apart.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, okay, these people are still trying to do this to try to ride this momentum.
Yeah, this is a Twitter problem, right? Like the way Twitter works is once you have garnered some level of attention, something is spiraling. The incentive is to continue to move that needle because you get your own attention for that thing. So these are people, as far as I can tell, who have lashed themselves. And by the way, we are not the only story in the D&D verse right now that they are shitting on or going after. But as far as I can tell from a lot of these feeds is there is a torrent of hate going around all the time. And we just happen to sort of and here's the thing, it's all based on hashtags, right? So we posted with the hashtag D&D and it's so funny to me because like you posted it and it felt like such an innocent post when I read it. I'm like, hey, D&D, we interviewed Satine Phoenix. Ha ha ha. Like it was just like this Mickey Mouse post of like we just
like our usual kinds of posts announcing an interview.
Yeah. Where literally we are in the ether of nothingness that we get no likes, almost no impressions, almost nothing. And then when you post this, it suddenly takes on a life of its own. 82,000 people wind up seeing this and none of them have anything good to say. So, which is fine. And so but the thing is like, if they had all just said nothing, we would not have had a platform, right? And the claim that we are platforming people is like, what are you talking about? Like we have a podcast. We've always had a podcast. We are not platforming, and whatever that means. I don't even know what it means to be platforming people. But I think what's finding is that, if we there's this like tornado going around in Twitter that is the D&D hashtag, right? And then if you just like step on any of those things, the tornado comes into your town.
Yeah.
And now it's going to basically come and explode all over this topic. And so, yeah, I guess I don't give a shit.
It's really, you make an interesting point. It's like, oh, they're upset with us for building up this topic and making it like, how dare you give this like awareness and notice? It's like,
we didn't.
Yeah, actually, we tried like we have for the last 2 years for all these other people we've interviewed and all of our other episodes, but it's never worked out until you all came along.
Yeah. And then we decided to interview somebody who, we thought had an interesting story, controversial story. We didn't know how good or bad she was going to be. I don't know if she's lying. I don't know if she's right. I don't know her. But what I will say is she was polite to us.
She was polite.
And we were pleasant to her. And guess what?
Yeah.
Everyone on Twitter has been a fucking shitbag. So as far as I can tell, all these people who's like, you're fronting an abuser. We are also now watching people abuse us.
Abuse us. Yes.
For putting someone that they claim is an abuser up there. And maybe she is. I don't know.
Truth is, we don't know her very well. Yeah.
I went through every one of those text threads that is posted on Twitter. I've done it. Like, I did the research. I just disagree that any of that is real abuse, because I've actually been in relationships that are really abusive emotionally. And I'm not saying, and everyone's different, right? What I do think is Satine's from LA. She was very famous in the D&D verse. Most people who are in LA are fairly obsessed with their image, and they seem to care a lot about how their tattoos came out. So their tattoo artist got a lot of heat when he was fucking around with them. And the fact is that this guy probably didn't like that was the way he was treated, and they probably shouldn't have been treated that way. But I'll tell you, when you have an image-based business and somebody starts fucking with your image, or maybe has some level of consequence, that's a triggering point for people who are in LA or in the public eye. And I'm not excusing the actions. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just think she's not a date rapist. She does not use the N-word. And there's a lot of people that are, I think, under the impression that what's happening is so much worse than what it might have been.
Yeah. And we approached Satine out of the business side of things to see, where she is now after all of that happened. Like, what kind of business is she doing now? Like, and hear about how she kind of started in the D&D world, because a lot of our audience enjoys the D&D community. I will say this has taught me about the contradictions of trolls. And one of the biggest contradictions to come out of this, and it hit me this morning while I was brushing my teeth. I was like, wait a minute. Because, of course, like you said, we wake up and we're always thinking about this right now. This is so raw. It's so fresh. And in the beginning, we were being accused of not getting the stories from the, as they say, quote unquote, victims. And that to me is, I was like, you know what? That's a fair point. Like, we should hear every side. And that I'm all about hearing multiple sides. But in the beginning, it wasn't about what had happened. That's not why we brought her on the show, but it was part of it. So that aside, people saying you should hear more sides, you should hear the victims. It's like, okay, fair point. Like, totally happy to talk with these people if they really want to come forward. Like, if that is really upsetting people, we can do that. But then now, once we put out our response saying, hey, if anyone has been affected, they feel unheard, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. And then people come forward and say, hey, like, oh, of course you want to make content by making people relive their trauma. And it's like, okay, well, we can't win. Like, the trolls want us to get the victims, and the trolls also don't want us to put the victims through something. So we can't win. The trolls just don't make sense. And it's really interesting to really just put that contradiction together clearly in my mind and say, okay, these trolls are completely irrational. They're many voices, and we call them a singular troll, or plural trolls, actually. But really, they're this mob mentality. They're just unhappy and they can't be appeased, just like a mob.
Yeah, well, it's also weird because, like, I guess I just struggle with like the outrage aspect of it. Like there are big things in the world, right? Like, Palestinians are getting killed every single day.
Right.
Ukraine is in a war. There are people who are in Cambodia that are forced into slave labor, texting people running pig butchering scams, and they have no freedom. There are people trying to cross the border and into the United States and dying. There's a lot of kind of really solid problems in the world that you could be absolutely pissed and outraged about. And to me, when somebody is utilizing rage in that way towards, to me, what sounds like, you just talked to someone, right? Like, we didn't endorse, like, okay, we'll talk about our interview in a second. I think there could have been a few things we might have done differently, having known what we known. But I will say that the idea that we have a conversation, this little business podcast, nerdy podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs, is like where you're going to direct all that focus and rage. It's almost like, to me, there's a denial of reality, and it's not about reality. It's about how do I be this person that everybody respects.
And that was the real question for me. Why were they so angry at us? Where was this nerd rage coming from? As far as I could tell, all we'd done is have a conversation with someone and then posted about it. Why were we being called godless couch fucks? Was there something in the interview that we said that really triggered people? I mean, did people even listen to the interview? So I decided to look back on our conversation with Satine. Was there something that we'd missed? Did she have an explanation as to why people got so angry about her? I mean, who better to explain the anger than the person who experienced this nerd rage firsthand? Well, upon re-listening to our conversation, there was a moment where Satine gave us her perspective on why these nerds are so angry.
Either you want to get paid or you want a platform for something. And this is where things start getting a little funny, where all of a sudden, so my husband yelled at somebody, said very mean things, and said, "Oh, you're acting like a child." It was pretty mean, but not ruin our life mean, in my opinion, right? It's okay, yeah, I can totally understand how he hurt this guy's feelings, maybe triggered something that created another trauma response. We were friends after that. There's politics behind the scenes that I found out about later that made me go, oh man, of course that hurt, broke me. But also there's other, and I can't bring up these other people because then they'll do a thing, but imagine that there's jealousy in the arena where I'm literally doing the thing that I love to do, and I have to because I can't breathe if I'm not doing it. And then there's other people doing things for ego. They're doing things for validation. And this is the whole social climbing thing in Hollywood, right? So roundabout, my tattoo artist got upset with my husband because my husband yelled at him over text message after doing a 3-day tattoo. And he even warned my husband. He's like, you're going to have chemicals in your body and it is going to make you aggro. And it did. And that's real. And he was sorry about it. And a year later, he actually went up to him and apologized for it. And he goes, thanks. But apparently he wasn't over it. There were other elements that happened that I found out about later that led to the cancellation. And I was like, oh, okay. Then suddenly somebody says, well, this happened to me and he was a dick to me and he was a dick and she was a dick. And then this woman that was the producer of the thing says, Satine made me hold her coffee and lorded her power over me. And I was like, hold on here. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm sorry. You asked me if I needed help. And I said, yeah, can you hold my coffee while I'm videotaping? We're videotaping for 10 hours a day and I'm going to need some coffee, but it looks kind of tacky. And she got mad at me for this, that, and that. And she became this whole leader of this army that literally came after. And then Brian Foster got triggered because he was in a cult. And then he decides that oh, Jameson's a cult leader. Not a cult leader. He's introverted and literally can't be around people for very long. So here you have stories. We're literally in a gaming community where we come up with stories about these nefarious characters, right? And yeah, one person had ammo. Another person said, go get him, use your ammo, and boom. And then what I found out later is there was a whole plan, and people wanted things. I don't even know if I should go into it or allowed to go into it. It wasn't a thing that was you know what, I'm feeling like this. There was a catalyst that happened. And my husband was a very angry person. And he yelled at a lot of people. He yelled at a lot of people in business. You can't do that. You just can't. And so there was a thing where he coerced me to be a part of one of the yelling at my tattoo artist. And I was like, yep, I got coerced. And that sucked. And I'm an adult. And we hung out. The guy was at our wedding. He like drank with us at our wedding. So all of a sudden he's canceling us. Like, come on, there's more going on here. Yeah, so that's kind of like the canceling thing. There was no like racism or like sexism, but people they wanted a platform, and I had a big ass platform. People were coming out of the woodwork.
Well, you were the queen of D&D, right? Like there is
yeah, but what even is that?
Place,
it's
right?
Just, it's like floating words in the ether.
well, right, exactly. Like we attach whatever meaning and story we want to that, and many other people like, but to be the, sort of the couple or the people of D&D at that time, which D&D was like, I don't want to say it's not huge now, but like there was a real peak around that time where everything was about D&D and everywhere online was about D&D. And when you compare cancellations in the D&D community to like cancellations on the national stage and what people get canceled for, it's way tamer than like, you're not like when you step into the real business world outside of the nerdpreneur area. I am not surprised you find it so nice and
I got
sort of relaxed
shamed.
and completely like that.
Shame. Like who does that?
Yeah,
like that's not a
the
good
internet
human thing to do.
I think I remember sending you a message being like, you got a mob coming for you for very little. Like I'm looking at even, these screenshots and things that people say and stuff. And I'm just like, this is a sensitive community. This is a very sensitive community. I'm not saying that it's not important to sometimes be sensitive and be around that. I think, but as someone who has, as someone who's been in real business and sales and been rejected hundreds of times and had and been broke and bankrupt and all sorts of things, come back and had money, like the big picture of dealing with something like, oh my God, this person was really rude to me and a little bit like aggressive or was loud or I don't know what yelling over text even is. I don't even know what that is. But the idea of that being the reason why you are canceled was shocking to me at that moment. So I do just want to say that I was sort of like shocked to watch the whole thing as it was unfolding, because it said more about our community at D&D than I think it did necessarily about you. And not to say we don't have responsibilities in ourselves, and we have to obviously continually grow and improve and take responsibility for what we did do. I just thought the time of what it was and the blow up of what it was seemed disproportionate to like real world problems.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. And also, I also feel very responsible that here I am with this massive platform, and we're doing this thing where we're playing a game and we're getting into people's imaginations, but not even just their imaginations. We're getting into their 6-year-old imagination, that little part of them that wants armor, that needs armor, right? So I went back to school. I'm studying psychology because it is important for me to understand how we all relate to one another and how we are interacting and the damage we can do. You've got people who are literally saying, please help me. A lot of the accusations are, I wasn't seen. I felt rejected. I felt abandoned by Satine. And so once I did a 1.5 years worth of therapy and real deep diving, I was like, oh my God, I was like their mother figure. And I'm not saying oh, they looked at me like I'm their mom, but way down deep in the psyche, I gave nothing. I was a canvas for people to project upon. And I literally did that. I did that. I didn't want people to know who I was really on the inside. Nobody knew me. I'd walk at a convention. People would talk at me. I would talk up on the panels, but I didn't give any of my personal humanness. And so here they are projecting, and here whatever platform I'm on just crumbles because it's made out of cellophane.
Because it's the human part, it's the part that people forget. Because in Joseph Campbell's idea of myth and celebrity status in current society, you are what people are using as their symbol, their image.
Yes.
But forgetting that whereas Hercules may or may not have been a guy who people put in this pedestal, it's a lot harder to knock Hercules down if he was not a real person, whereas you are a real person.
Yeah, and if somebody says, "Can I help you?" and my therapist has been telling me, "Dude, you gotta accept help." It was like one of those perfect storm moments. And I said, "Yes, I am human. I would like help. I'm tired of doing all the things. Can you help me do a thing?"
Yeah.
Yes, I will accept it. Nope, you're supposed to say no. Who made that rule? I don't know about that. That's not what I'm supposed to say. I cannot read your mind. And that is how it happens a lot. You've got game masters at a table. It seems like we can read your mind. It seems like we are these magic creatures who are like weaving these tales. But really, we are just people. Actors are people. Musicians are people. People are people. Creators, we make mistakes. We are not all knowing. And we need to be treated and respected the way a person would respect themselves. But then I guess that is the next part of it, right? If they're not respecting themselves and they felt a lot of shame and a lot of rejection, it's easy if you don't have that self-reflection to put it out onto another person and then attack them. And like literally that's what I'm learning in therapy and in psychology, right? But the problem is I'm a business. And so if I get bullied, the business gets bullied. Money doesn't come in. Suddenly, the money that we made on the Kickstarter goes to the entire team. And like, I never saw anything. And then I was jobless for a long period of time. Couldn't get work. I couldn't even get up, So it's like, do you want to be a brand? I guess this is a warning episode.
Very much is like, what does it take and what are the potential consequences?
Was Satine right? Was this all because an extra sensitive community projected the queen of D&D on her, and when she turned up and was only human, they couldn't take it? Do any of you remember when Christian Bale lost it on set of some movie? I think it might have been Batman. And the fact that he was Batman at the time and was just being this utter dick to someone on set, if you forget what it sounded like, here's a little glimpse.
I'm gonna fucking kick your fucking ass. Shut up for a second, all right? I'm gonna go. Do you want me to go fucking trash your lights? Do you want me to fucking trash them? Then why are you trashing my scene?
The question is, did outrage at that increase because he played Batman? I think maybe there's something to that. Maybe because we love Batman, we expect a little better of those who are in the limelight. And he let us down. Now, Christian Bale, within a year, was on another movie set making another movie. And we decided a year after to go to Satine. Why were they so angry at us? We didn't defend her. We just wanted to hear her story and see if there was anything she learned from the experience. Because I know when I've screwed up and made mistakes in my life, usually I look back on those mistakes and I've learned something valuable about myself or about life or about how I'm going to be from now on. That's really the mindset that we were going into this whole interview with. I mean, what if they actually listened to the episode and realized we weren't defending her? We were just looking for lessons and knowledge. Would that make a difference?
These people would have been upset anyway.
Mm-hmm.
These people were upset as soon as the post landed. They were upset. The only person who actually claims to have listened only listened for about, because he said his post was, I would never listen. I would never listen to this. I would never support it. And then 20 minutes later, keep in mind, this is an hour-long episode. 20 minutes later, he posts and says, oh my God, I actually listened to it. And these guys just fluffed her up. It's like, wait, so you listened at what? What is that? 3 times speed? You telling me you listened to an hour-long episode at 3 times speed and you were able to interpret everything?
Yeah, and
I don't think so. I don't think so, buddy. You're just wanting to rip us apart for your own platforming.
Exactly. You're just platforming yourself, which is why it's just funny to me, because everybody is sort of just out for themselves. And I mean, we're getting blamed for doing that ourselves, I guess, too, right? I think that there's people who are...
Yeah, okay, I got to respond to that really, because I feel very strongly about people being like, oh, you're just putting her on your show to like get engagement. It's like, actually, I'm going to tell you right now, you're right. That's exactly what we did, because that's what every podcast, every content creator does that. Every content creator is looking for the thing that is going to get attention. We do not abuse people. We do not manipulate them. We do not do anything to harm others.
Yeah.
We do things because we want to talk to interesting people, hear interesting stories, and get some facts and wisdom that we can share with other people. We want to provide value. That's what we're doing here. And yes, of course, like we talked to someone who has a mixed past in something that blew up in their face. And that is a very interesting story.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of people say like, oh, they just, our letter addressed the fact that what our impression was is that they didn't like that we weren't gotcha journalists and that we were kind of nice to her. And then when we called that out, because that was definitely the tone of what things were on the first day. The second day, when we called that out and said, it seems like you guys were just pissed we weren't mean to her. You know, like we should have made her cry or something, you know, like which.
Yeah, we respect and we're polite to everybody.
So, but then they're like, no, we're just annoyed that you're giving her a platform at all. But it's like, we wouldn't have given her she wouldn't have a platform if you just didn't engage with it. Right.
Yeah.
And so
there were a lot of things people said that showed they didn't listen. Like one thing that really stood out to me was, you know, this show is just showing that Satine's trying to get back into the D&D sphere. It's like, no, she says several times in our interview, she doesn't want to be in the D&D world anymore. She's ready to move on.
Yeah, no interest with you people. And to be fair, I kind of am fucking done with you guys too. Like there's so many other nerdy businesses and so many more nerdy niches that are more interesting. And D&D kind of had its heyday. And honestly, I think it's kind of done. Like I had a D&D podcast at the time, like a actual play when it was on the rise. And I was actually growing quite quickly. It was going really well. And then the whole thing fell apart because of, you know, fortunately players being emotionally unstable due to real abuses and challenges in their life during COVID. So unfortunately, macro circumstances made the death of that podcast. But hell, I might have been, if that hadn't happened, I could be really quite large, probably like in the D&D tabletop RPG space for this. But now I'm like, do I even want these fans? Like, do I even want these people who, you know, or at least these are the ones that they're doing? I think that, you know, they were looking for an apology.
Yeah.
That's, and it's
we didn't do anything wrong, so I'm not going to apologize.
Yeah. And also I think that, you know, I don't know. I think there's something to there. I don't know. It feels to me like they're getting off for getting people to apologize and curb to their demands. And it's
a power play.
It speaks to me of a lack of goodness in their own life. Like if you really have agency and power and you're able to get things, you know, done in your own life and you're succeeding at a high level, it feels to me like you wouldn't be so like you wouldn't be into this.
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm not into it. You're not into it. We're not going around like looking for places to, you know, out people and
it feels mean.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it because it feels mean, and I do not like being a mean person. I never have. I mean, that's because of some of my childhood experiences. I mean, people were mean to me a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know, like I was saying, I got yelled at a lot, and people were mean. So I don't like making other people feel that way.
It might make you feel powerful for a moment, but it does not long term create anything good for your life. It hurts your relationships. It hurts everybody else. And you wind up hating yourself anyways and feeling less in control. So, you can't excuse the tactics for the purpose. Like, no matter how evil someone is, you really have to think about whether you want to throw the death penalty at them.
What do you mean by that?
So even if we're like, I want to take the hard line here. Like, let's say what we did was as bad as what they're saying. Just for a second, I want to imagine, I'm not agreeing with it, but let's just say Satine truly is this awful, awful, awful person who left a trail of abuse, trauma, and horrid things behind, right? If that were the case, are their tactics and the way in which they're doing this still in itself ethical and moral? Are they okay with it? Like, murderers murder someone, Texas fries them on a friggin' chair. Is that okay? And you have to realize, if you actually dig into some of the moralities around this, it's not. It's really not. Like, using bad tactics and unethical means, even against bad people, it does not become morally justified. And there's a real problem in our society of like, well, as long as they're bad, we can do all these
whatever
things
we want.
Yeah. And that's not right. It's actually wrong. It feels to me like they are standing on this imaginary step of moral high ground, but it's an imaginary step. Like, they've taken this thing step up to like make themselves feel superior to everybody else. But in actuality, their tactics show who they really are. Like, when you go do this, if you're mean to me, everybody sees directly who you are. So I can take it, but I don't have to listen. And the only person who really is going to suffer from this is you. Because
it's your habit. I think it's also gets to a point where it becomes a trap that they've put themselves into, because if they start to become known for being this like hateful troll, then they start to connect and network and join communities of other hateful trolls. And then they're stuck in this community because they can't get out because they've been branded and known as hateful trolls.
Yeah.
Kind of like you're saying, like, it really does hurt them because it closes so many doors for them, which then only perpetuates their spiral into this community of hate.
Yeah.
Because they're like, this is the only community I can be a part of now because I'm trapped here. It's like when you're in a relationship with someone who is really abusive and you're like, oh man, like I'm convinced that I can't have anything better in my life. So I might as well just stay here. And so much of what this has taught me, so I'm going to back up a little bit, but so much of what this has taught me is just how hard it must be for them. Because when this first started to blow up, the first hour of this, my empathy, my empathy was very strong. It was very much, I feel for these people. I feel that they are so strongly motivated behind this. My heart goes out to them because they really see bad here. Maybe I can show them. Maybe I can explain. Like, my first few responses were like, hey, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but like, this is why we did it. We wanted to hear her story. She had some interesting news, an interesting business expertise and a fascinating background around this. Like, we interview people. This is what we do. And then they didn't show any sign of hearing me. They just talked into the void, yelled at me. And I was like, you know what? This is a troll.
So what you're saying is that when they called you a godless couch fuck, that didn't win you over?
No. I kind of feel empowered by the fact that we're in this together. If I was alone, I would feel really, I would feel like a terrible person, and I would really beat myself up about it. But because we're doing this together and I can talk about it with you, and we've had
a couple pep talks too. Yeah.
Yeah. We've really been in this together. It's been like, all right, like, I am not a bad person. We are not bad people. Like your perspective of, for myself, I, over my lifetime, have always seen myself as the problem and the person who needs to change. And that's really hard going into something like this, because with trolls, as a people pleaser, I instinctively would pander to them, but I have enough therapy and work on myself over my life that I know I don't want to be that person.
And a narcissistic, psychopathic partner in this that's telling you that you're good. No,
that's not what a narcissist would say. So you are not that.
Yeah, no. But this is it, right? Like I definitely understand where that is, because I was like that. How do you think you can get and stay in abusive relationships for so long, like I have in my past, without being the person who is a people pleaser, without being a person who doesn't have a strong sense of self? I had to trial through fire to get to the point of being like, no, actually, when I feel something, I'm going to trust that. And I'm going to actually realize like, whoa, that pissed me off. I need to set some boundaries, or I need to talk about it. Like, this needs to be set straight or changed,
That's been a lot of my work over the last 5 years, is getting to this point where I feel like I can recognize my boundaries, I can communicate them, and I can hear what people have to say about those boundaries I've communicated. Like, that's been a lot of work. And so with all of this has been quite it's going to be really interesting to bring it up in therapy, but it's been really interesting to see, okay, these people are pushing my buttons. What can I do to protect myself? And the biggest thing has just been, don't go on Twitter. Like, I turn off Twitter notifications, and they've been that way for a very long time, months. I have had my Twitter notifications off for a long time.
If you still have notifications on any of your apps that aren't like your parents, your girlfriend, boyfriend, or partner, whoever, like, what are you doing? You're giving your control to the phone.
Exactly.
My default for everything in my life is no notifications. And if I get a notification that I don't like, I go through, because I'm on Apple, and I say, ooh, turn this shit off.
I know. I actually turned on notifications for Reddit, but that is for research purposes. That's because I want to see how Reddit works.
Yeah, temporary, right? Like, I've done that before. But I mean, when I was blowing up on Instagram, I had to do that because it was just getting obsessive. But I'll just say that these people that want to just get their dopamine hit from an app because they're craving some sort of attention. If you're like that, like, the answer's not in hating us, because life's a heck of a lot more than what's happening on Twitter, online, in one post. To me, that just reeks of a lack of meaning in their own lives. And maybe if they read a book like Man's Search for Meaning, they can get some perspective on how to actually get meaning in their life. Because even in the darkest and most worst of places, like a concentration camp, you can find meaning. And that's the lesson of Viktor Frankl, and one that I think every person should actually have, so that they can find that meaning in their own life and not attach it to something that could hurt them in the long run.
What you said reminds me of Star Wars, actually, just to make it a little nerdy here. But in Star Wars, and I actually had this explained to me by a mom was telling her then 6-year-old son why she and their dad had split, and why the dad was so hostile and mean and negative all the time and incapable of gratitude. And the mom told me that she said, well, she had to tell her 6-year-old son an answer to a hard question like that. And she said, they're a family that loves Star Wars. And she said, he's like Darth Vader. Your father's like Darth Vader. He has become like a Sith. He has let go so much. He has given in to the absolutes. In Star Wars, a Sith lives in absolutes. Yoda says that. Like, the Sith can only live in it. To only live in absolutes is to be in the dark side, because when you are in the side of light, you recognize the light shines on everything. Everything is within the scope of acceptance, recognition, It is valid. And when you're in the side of the dark, only your perspective is the way it should be.
Perspective. I felt like we were missing some perspective. Were there absolutes that this community believed in that we just didn't know about? Shortly after this whole Twitter blowout, we were approached by someone who worked with Satine and Jameson personally. They offered to give us a little bit more perspective on why people were not only angry with Satine, but also with us, and exactly why this particular nerdy niche was so infuriated. That and more next time.
You just finished part 1, and part 2 will be released in the next few weeks. If you'd like to listen to part 2 immediately, head over to our Patreon where patrons already have access. Otherwise, follow us on your podcast listening app and stay tuned. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/nerdpreneur. Until then, keep it nerdy.